Imagine for a moment that you are standing in the middle of the grandest lobby in all of Seoul, South Korea. It is a Tuesday afternoon, just a few years ago. The air inside is cool and smells faintly of expensive coffee and fresh flowers. The floor is made of white and gray marble, so shiny that you can see your reflection in it. Everywhere you look, there are people in suits rushing to meetings, tourists carrying cameras, and hotel staff polishing every surface until it gleams. Right in the center of this huge room, standing like a king on a throne, sits a massive black grand piano. It is a Steinway, worth more than most people's cars. Usually, it just sits there looking beautiful. No one plays it. It is just for show. But on this day, the music was about to change everything. In the middle of the crowd, there was a little girl. Her name was Ye-Eun. She was only 5 years old, tiny for her age, with short hair and a bright, innocent face. She was wearing a simple pink dress that looked a little bit worn out, not fancy like the clothes the other guests were wearing. If you looked closely, you would notice something else about the Ye-Eun. Her eyes didn't focus on the marble floor or the shiny lights. She was blind. She had been born without sight. To the Ye-Eun, the world wasn't made of things you see. It was made of things you hear and feel. While other people saw the color of the walls, the Ye-Eun heard the hum of the air conditioner and the echo of footsteps. She wasn't interested in the fancy furniture or the chandeliers. She was interested in the big black beast in the middle of the room. She tugged gently on her mother's hand. Her mother, a tired but kind woman who worked hard to give her daughter everything she could, looked down. "What is it, sweetie?" she asked softly. The Ye-Eun pointed a small finger toward the piano. "I can hear it calling me, Mommy," she whispered. "It's lonely." Her mother smiled sadly. She knew her daughter had a special connection with sound, but this was a luxury hotel. They didn't belong here. They were just passing through, enjoying a moment of air conditioning on a hot day. "We can't touch that, honey. It's very expensive. Let's just sit and rest for a minute." They sat on a velvet bench near the elevators. But the Ye-Eun couldn't take her eyes off the direction of the piano. She could feel the vibrations of the lobby in her chest. It was like the room was a song waiting to be sung. Now, let's look at the other side of the lobby. Standing near the front desk was a man named Mr. Kang. Mr. Kang was the CEO of a massive electronics company. He was a man who was used to getting exactly what he wanted, exactly when he wanted it. He wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than the family car, and he held a briefcase in one hand and a coffee in the other. He was checking his watch, tapping his foot. He was not happy. Mr. Kang was waiting for a business partner who was late. He hated waiting. To him, time was money, and every minute wasted was a loss. The noise of the lobby was annoying him. The laughter of tourists, the clicking of heels, the ding of the elevators, it all just sounded like chaos. He was a man who loved control, and right now, he felt like he was in the middle of a mess. He looked around, scanning the room for something to blame for his bad mood. That's when he saw them. The little girl in the pink dress and her mother. They were sitting on the expensive bench, and to Mr. Kang, they looked out of place. He didn't see a sweet family. He saw people who weren't contributing to the atmosphere he wanted. He sighed, shook his head, and turned away, checking his phone again. Suddenly, a sound cut through the noise. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. A single musical note. Asterisk C-sharp. Asterisk. Mr. Kang spun around. The chatter in the lobby seemed to dip for a second. There was the Ye-Eun. She had wandered away from her mother, while her mom was looking in her bag for a tissue. The little girl had walked up to the giant piano. She stood there, looking small against the huge instrument. She reached out and touched a key. Then another. Asterisk E. Asterisk, then another. Asterisk G. Asterisk. She was just testing the notes, seeing how they felt under her fingers. She wasn't playing a song yet. She was just saying hello to the machine. Mr. Kang's face turned red. He marched across the marble floor, his shoes making sharp clicking sounds. "Hey!" he called out, his voice harsh and loud. "What do you think you are doing?" The Ye-Eun froze. Her hands hovered over the keys. She couldn't see the angry man coming toward her, but she could hear the heavy, fast footsteps. She could hear the stress in his voice. Her mother heard it too. She jumped up from the bench, her heart pounding. Ye-Eun, she called out, running over. I am so sorry. I am so sorry, sir. She grabbed Ye-Eun's hand and tried to pull her back. She didn't mean any harm. We were just leaving. A small crowd had started to gather. Hotel security guards stepped forward, looking at Mr. Kang to see what he wanted to do. The mood in the room had shifted from relaxed to tense. It was that awkward feeling where everyone knows something bad is about to happen, and nobody wants to watch, but nobody can look away. Mr. Kang straightened his jacket. He looked down at the mother, then at the blind little girl. He felt powerful. He felt like he was the enforcer of order in this chaotic world. This is not a toy, he snapped, pointing a finger at the piano. This is a concert instrument. It is for professionals, not for children who don't know what they are doing. The mother's face burned with shame. She bowed her head repeatedly. I know, sir. I know. It won't happen again. Come on, Ye-Eun. But Mr. Kang wasn't done. He was frustrated by his day, frustrated by his late meeting, and he was taking it out on the easiest target. A thought crossed his mind. He wanted to prove a point. He wanted to show everyone that rules exist for a reason. He looked at the little girl, who was standing quietly, listening to his voice with a sad expression. You want to touch it? Mr. Kang asked, a mocking tone in his voice. You think you can just walk up and make music? Go ahead. Play something. The mother looked up, shocked. Sir, please. No, no, Mr. Kang said, crossing his arms. He stepped back, putting on a show for the people watching. Let's see what she can do. If she plays a song, I'll apologize. If she just bangs on the keys like a baby, you leave. Immediately. The crowd murmured. It was cruel. Everyone knew it. Challenging a 5-year-old blind girl to perform on a spotless grand piano in a hotel lobby? It was a setup. It was designed to make her fail so he could feel superior. Ye-Eun's mother squeezed her daughter's hand. It's okay, baby. We don't have to do this. But Ye-Eun didn't move. She stood still for a moment, processing the sounds. She heard the meanness in the man's voice, but she also heard the challenge in the piano. The keys were still humming slightly from the notes she had played earlier. She took a deep breath. She pulled her hand gently from her mother's grip. I want to try, Mommy, Ye-Eun said softly. Her mother hesitated, looking at the stern face of the CEO. She looked at the security guards. She knew how hard life was for her daughter. She knew about the struggles. You see, this wasn't the first time someone had underestimated Ye-Eun. Let me tell you a little bit about why this moment was so scary for her mother. Ye-Eun's life had been a series of people telling her no. When she was a baby, doctors told her parents she might never speak clearly. She proved them wrong. When she was 3, her parents tried to enroll her in a music class, hoping it would help her develop her senses. But the music teachers refused to teach her. She can't read the notes, they said. She can't see the sheet music. How will she know where to put her fingers? One teacher even laughed. Piano is for eyes, not ears, he had said cruelly. Find a different hobby. So her parents bought a cheap electronic keyboard. They played songs for her, and Ye-Eun memorized them. Not just the melody, but the feeling. She learned that a sad song felt heavy, like a gray blanket. A happy song felt light, like bubbles. She practiced every day on that toy keyboard, pressing the buttons until they were worn smooth. But she had never played a real grand piano. She had never felt the weight of real ivory keys. And she had certainly never played in front of a crowd of strangers, let alone a rich, angry CEO. Mr. Kang checked his watch again, sighing loudly. We don't have all day, he said. If you can't play, just step aside so the adults can use the lobby. The silence in the room was heavy. It was the kind of silence that hurts your ears. Everyone felt bad for the little girl. They were waiting for her to cry. They were waiting for her to run away to her mother. Even the security guards looked uncomfortable, shifting their weight from foot to foot, hoping the CEO would just let it go. But Ye-Eun didn't cry. Instead, she did something brave. She climbed onto the piano bench. Her feet dangled high above the floor. She couldn't reach the pedals, that part would have to wait. She straightened her back. She closed her eyes tight, even though she couldn't see, because it helped her focus. She hovered her small hands over the keys. For a second, they trembled. The doubt was there. The memory of the teacher who laughed at her was there. The voice of the man telling her she was just a baby was there. Then she remembered the song she loved the most. It was a song called "River Flows in You" by a famous composer named Ye-Eun. She knew every note by heart. She knew it not just with her mind, but with her soul. She took one last deep breath, and then she dropped her hands. The first note she hit was not a bang. It was a gentle, perfect chime. And then her fingers began to dance. If you had closed your eyes, you never would have believed a 5-year-old was playing. The sound that filled the lobby was rich and full. It wasn't a simple nursery rhyme. It was a complex, flowing melody that seemed to tell a story. Her left hand played the bass notes, steady and strong like a heartbeat. Her right hand moved like water, flowing up and down the scales. The music was soft and loud and soft again. It was like the piano was speaking for her, saying all the things she couldn't put into words. Mr. Kang's eyes popped open. His mouth fell open just a tiny bit. He uncrossed his arms. The annoyance on his face was replaced by pure shock. The people in the lobby stopped murmuring completely. A businessman who was typing on his laptop stopped and looked up. A woman talking on her phone lowered her voice and then hung up. The security guards stood at attention, listening. It wasn't just that she was playing the right notes. It was the emotion. Ye-Eun played with a feeling that most musicians spend a lifetime trying to find. Because she had to rely on her ears so much, her connection to the sound was deeper than anyone else's. She wasn't thinking about what she looked like. She wasn't thinking about the crowd. She was inside the music. The melody floated up to the high ceiling. It bounced off the marble walls. It wrapped around the angry CEO and the worried mother. It changed the temperature of the room. Suddenly, the cold, expensive hotel felt warm and human. As the song reached its climax, Ye-Eun's hands moved faster. The music swelled. It was triumphant. It was a little girl shouting to the world, "I am here and I have a voice." And then, slowly, the song began to wind down. She played the final notes, soft and lingering. She pressed the last key and let the sound fade into silence until there was nothing left but the hum of the air conditioning again. Ye-Eun sat there for a moment, her hands resting on the keys. She took a deep breath and opened her eyes, though she saw only darkness. She smiled, feeling the vibration of the strings fading away. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It was as if everyone was holding their breath, afraid that if they made a sound, the magic would break. Then, a sound came from the back of the room. It was clapping. One person clapping at first, slow and steady. It was Mr. Kang. He wasn't clapping to be polite. He was clapping because he was moved. His eyes were actually watery. The tough, business-minded man who cared only about time and money was wiping a tear from his cheek. That broke the spell. The lobby erupted in applause. It wasn't just a polite clapping. It was a roar. People were cheering. Some were wiping away tears, touched by the beauty of the moment and the triumph of this small child. "Bravo!" shouted a man in a suit. "Amazing!" Ye-Eun's mother was crying too, but these were happy tears. She covered her mouth with her hands, watching her daughter, so proud she thought her heart might burst. Mr. Kang walked up to the piano bench. The crowd parted to let him through. He didn't look like the arrogant boss anymore. He looked like a man who had just learned a very important lesson. He knelt down on one knee so he was face to face with Ye-Eun. He gently placed his hand on the piano bench near hers. "That was," Mr. Kang started, and he had to clear his throat because his voice was shaking. "That was the most beautiful thing I have ever heard." Ye-Eun turned her head toward his voice. "Did you like it?" she asked innocently. "I loved it," Mr. Kang said. "I am so sorry I was rude to you. I judged you before I heard you. That was my mistake." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his business card. He took a pen and wrote something on the back. He handed it to the mother. "I own a music production company," he said, which was true, part of his business empire. "I want to help her. If she can play like this at 5 years old, the world needs to hear her. Bring her to my office. We will pay for the best teachers." We will get her the best instruments. No more no. Only yes. The mother took the card, her hands shaking. She couldn't believe what was happening. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. The story of that afternoon in the hotel lobby didn't end there. It spread. People who were there told their friends. The staff talked about it for months. And true to his word, Mr. Kang became a patron for the Ye-Eun. He made sure she got the education she deserved. But the real lesson wasn't about the music career. The real lesson was about what happened in the hearts of everyone standing there that day. We live in a world that is very quick to judge. We see a little girl in a simple dress, and we think she doesn't belong. We see a man in a suit, and we think he has all the power. We see a disability, and we think it's a limitation. But the Ye-Eun taught them something different. She taught them that talent doesn't care about how much money you have. It doesn't care if you can see, or if you can't. It doesn't care how old you are. Talent is a spark that lives inside you, waiting for a chance to shine. Have you ever felt like the weight of the world was on your shoulders? At one more interruption, one more problem, would make everything crumble? It's a feeling we all know. But what if the very thing you thought was an interruption was actually a message from the universe? A moment of pure, unexpected beauty designed to change your perspective forever? This is a story about a moment like that. A story about a little girl, a stressed-out CEO, and the incredible power of a simple melody. Our story takes us to the heart of Seoul, a city that never sleeps, a place where ambition and pressure hang heavy in the air. Imagine a luxurious five-star hotel, its lobby a whirlwind of activity. Bellhops rush with luggage, receptionists answer calls with practiced smiles, and business people in sharp suits stride purposefully, their minds already in the next meeting, the next deal. The air hums with a quiet, controlled chaos, a soundtrack of success. In the center of this opulent storm stands Mr. Kang, the CEO of a major tech corporation. He's a man carved from stress, his face a mask of tension, his shoulders hunched as if carrying an invisible burden. His phone is practically glued to his ear, his voice sharp and demanding. He's in the middle of closing a deal that could make or break his company, and every second counts. To him, the lobby is just a battlefield, and everyone in it is either an asset or an obstacle. He notices nothing beyond the numbers and projections swirling in his head. The centerpiece of this grand lobby is a magnificent, gleaming black grand piano. It's more of a decoration than an instrument, a silent testament to a forgotten elegance. Most guests walk past it without a second glance, too absorbed in their own worlds. It sits there, polished and perfect, waiting for a touch it rarely receives. Now, into this high-stakes, high-stress environment, a new sound emerges. It's not the ring of a phone or the urgent click-clack of heels. It's the gentle tap, tap, tap of a small white cane. A tiny 5-year-old girl named Ye-Eun is making her way through the forest of legs and luggage. She is blind, and her world is a tapestry of sounds, smells, and textures. While her mother is briefly distracted at the check-in counter, the Ye-Eun's curiosity leads her on an adventure. Her cane taps against marble, then plush carpet, and then something smooth, cool, and solid. Her small hands reach out and touch the polished wood of the grand piano. Mr. Kang, deep in his tense phone call, is jolted by a sudden, discordant sound. Plink, plonk. A child is banging on the piano. His brow furrows in annoyance. A child? Here? Now? He glares over, ready to signal security. This is a place for business, not a playground. The noise is an unwelcome intrusion, a crack in the perfect facade of his controlled world. He sees a little girl at the piano and dismisses her as just another nuisance, another problem to be dealt with. His patience, already worn thin, is about to snap. But then something shifts. The clumsy, random notes stop. A moment of silence hangs in the air. And then a single clear note rings out. It's followed by another, and another, weaving together into a delicate, hesitant melody. It's not a famous classical piece or a popular tune. It's simple, almost like a lullaby, but it's filled with an unexplainable purity. Ye-Eun, sitting on the edge of the grand piano bench, is no longer just a little girl making noise. Her fingers, which have only ever known the world through touch, now dance across the ivory keys. She isn't playing from sheet music she can't see. She's playing from memory, from a place deep within her heart. The melody is her own creation, a song she has composed in the quiet concert hall of her mind. The effect is instantaneous and magical. The constant hum of the lobby begins to fade. A businessman lowers his phone. A tourist stops mid-sentence. The bellhop pauses, his hand still on the luggage cart. One by one, every person in that busy space turns towards the sound, drawn in by its simple, honest beauty. The frantic energy of the lobby dissolves, replaced by a shared moment of stillness and wonder. It's as if the music has cast a spell, pausing time itself. Mr. Kang is frozen in place. The angry words he was about to shout die on his lips. His phone call is forgotten. He stands there, staring at the little girl, and for the first time, he truly sees her. He sees her small, focused face, her fingers moving with a grace that belies her age. He hears not just notes, but a story. He hears innocence, he hears joy, and he hears a resilience that he, with all his power and wealth, can barely comprehend. The melody flows through the silent room, washing over him. It's like a cool rain on a parched landscape. Each note seems to chip away at the hard shell he has built around his heart. The tension in his shoulders eases. The lines of stress on his face soften. The multi-million-dollar deal, the quarterly reports, the crushing weight of expectation, it all melts away. In its place, something long forgotten begins to stir. He remembers being a boy, long before he was CEO Kang. He remembers dreaming of being a musician, the feel of his own small fingers on the keys of an old upright piano in his childhood home. He remembers the pure joy of creating something beautiful, not for profit or for praise, but just for the love of it. When did he lose that? When did the music stop? When did ambition become a cage instead of a launching pad? Tears well up in his eyes, hot and unexpected. They aren't tears of sadness, but of release. They are tears of recognition, for the part of himself he thought was lost forever, now reflected back at him in the form of a blind 5-year-old girl playing her heart out in a hotel lobby. The final note of the Ye-Eun song hangs in the air, shimmering, before fading into a profound silence. For a moment, no one moves, no one breathes. The spell is complete. Then, softly at first, one person begins to clap, then another and another, until the entire lobby erupts in warm, heartfelt applause. It's not the polite applause of a concert hall. It's a raw, emotional thank you. The Ye-Eun's mother rushes over, apologizing, but she is met with smiling faces and tear-streaked cheeks. Mr. Kang walks slowly towards the piano. He kneels down so he is eye level with the Ye-Eun. He doesn't say a word. He simply reaches out and gently takes her small hand, the hand that had just unlocked his heart. He looks at her, and in her unseeing eyes, he sees more clarity and vision than in any boardroom he's ever commanded. "Thank you," he whispers, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for the music." That day, Mr. Kang didn't just close a deal. He reconnected with his soul. He learned a lesson more valuable than any stock market gain. He learned that the most beautiful things in life often come from the most unexpected places. He learned that true strength isn't about control or power, but about vulnerability and the courage to listen to the music within. The Ye-Eun's story and Mr. Kang's transformation is a powerful reminder for all of us. We all have an inner music, a unique melody that is ours alone to play. But sometimes, in the rush and noise of daily life, we forget to listen. We let stress, ambition, and the expectations of others drown it out. We start to believe in our own limitations, the ones we see and the ones we don't. The Ye-Eun, who couldn't see the world, showed everyone how to feel it. She couldn't see the keys, but she found the melody. Her blindness wasn't a limitation. It was her unique lens, allowing her to experience the world on a deeper, more profound level. What if we all took a moment to listen for our own inner music? What if we allowed ourselves to be interrupted by moments of unexpected beauty? Perhaps we would find that our greatest perceived weaknesses are actually our greatest strengths, and that the obstacles in our path are just invitations to create a new and more beautiful song. The world is full of grand pianos waiting for a touch. All we have to do is be brave enough to play. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this moment with me. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories that inspire and uplift. Until next time, don't forget to listen for the music. Her mother tried to guide the Ye-Eun away, pulling gently on her daughter's arm, but the Ye-Eun didn't want to move. Her feet felt glued to the marble floor. She could still feel the phantom vibration of that single C note in her fingertips. She felt a strange, inexplicable connection to this angry man. She could hear the stress laced through his voice, the fast, agitated rhythm of his heart, or maybe it was just the sound of his angry breathing. She wanted to play for him. She felt deep down in her core that if she played, he wouldn't be angry anymore. "I can play," the Ye-Eun said quietly. The bustling lobby went deadly silent. Her mother froze. Mr. Kang, the source of all the tension, raised a single skeptical eyebrow. He stared down at the little girl with a mocking expression. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice dripping with disbelief. The Ye-Eun lifted her chin. She couldn't see his face, but she aimed her words directly at the sound of his voice. "I said I can play. It sounds nice. It makes the room feel better." Mr. Kang let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't a happy sound. It was the noise someone makes when they hear a ridiculous, unbelievable joke. He glanced around at the other people in the lobby, the ones who were now openly watching them. He looked at the hotel staff, who were trying to pretend they weren't listening, but were hanging on every word. "Oh, really?" Mr. Kang said, crossing his arms over his expensive suit. "You think you can play this? You think a little girl who can't even see the keys can play a Steinway grand piano?" It was a cruel thing to say. Everyone in the room felt it, a collective wince rippling through the crowd. It was the kind of comment that makes you flinch. Tears welled up in the mother's eyes. She felt the familiar sting of shame, the same shame she had felt so many times before. When doctors looked at her daughter with pity, when teachers shook their heads and said, "Impossible," when strangers on the street stared. It was the feeling of being judged as less than everyone else. "Sir, please," the mother whispered, her voice cracking. "Don't do this." But Mr. Kang was on a roll now. He was frustrated with his day, and he had found a convenient target for all his anger. He wanted to prove a point. He wanted to show the world that there are rules, and that people can't just do whatever they want. He didn't believe for a single second that this child could play. He was picturing it already. She would bang on the keys, making a horrible, dissonant noise. Then he could scold them, have them thrown out, and he would have won. He would have restored order. "You want to play?" Mr. Kang challenged her, taking a step closer, his large frame towering over her small one. "Go ahead, play something. But let me tell you what happens if you fail." He pointed a sharp, accusatory finger toward the revolving exit doors. "If you just bang on it, or if you make a terrible noise, you leave. You leave this hotel, and you don't come back. I am waiting for a very important business call, and I do not have time for games." The atmosphere in the lobby became suffocating. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. The hotel security guards took a tentative step forward, ready to intervene if things turned physical, but also ready to escort the family out if the powerful CEO demanded it. The Ye-Eun's mother squeezed her daughter's hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. "The Ye-Eun, no," she pleaded in a desperate whisper. "Let's just go. Come on, sweetie." But the Ye-Eun stood her ground. She was tiny, barely 3.5 feet tall, weighing maybe 40 pounds soaking wet. But in that moment, she felt bigger than the massive marble pillars that held up the ceiling. She realized something profound. Running away wouldn't change this man's mind. Running away would just prove him right. It would confirm his belief that she was just a noisy kid, an inconvenience. She gently pulled her hand away from her mother's desperate grip. "I want to try," she said, her voice a little stronger this time, laced with a quiet determination. Mr. Kang checked his expensive watch, making a big theatrical show of looking at the time. "Fine, you have 1 minute. Impress me or get out." This was the heart of the conflict. This wasn't just about playing a piano. It was about perception versus reality. It was about a world that sees a disability and automatically assumes inability. Mr. Kang saw a blind girl, and his mind immediately filled in the blank with the word broken. He saw her simple, worn-out dress and assumed poor. He saw a child and assumed ignorant. He had built a fortress around himself, a wall made of money and status and arrogance. And little Ye-Eun was standing at the bottom of that wall, holding a metaphorical hammer, though nobody, not even she, knew it yet. The crowd held its breath. You could feel the collective anxiety of 50 strangers hanging in the air. They were all thinking the same thing. Oh no, this is going to be a disaster. This poor kid is going to be utterly humiliated. Some people couldn't bear to watch and looked away. Others nervously pulled out their phones, maybe ready to record a viral fail video, or maybe just as a nervous habit. The constant hum of the air conditioning seemed to grow louder. The slow, deliberate ticking of the large clock on the wall sounded like a hammer striking an anvil, counting down to disaster. Tick, tick. Ye-Eun turned back to the magnificent piano. She couldn't find the bench at first. Her small hand patted the empty air, searching. Mr. Kang let out a huff of impatience. He had the fleeting thought to just grab her and plop her on the bench to speed things up, but he stopped himself. He wanted to watch her struggle. He wanted to see just how helpless she really was. But the Ye-Eun didn't struggle for long. Her hand brushed against the soft velvet of the bench. She felt her way around it and, with a small hop, climbed up. Her legs were too short to reach the floor, so they swung freely in the air. She wiggled her toes inside her scuffed sneakers. She sat there for a long moment, her back perfectly straight. She placed her hands in her lap. She took a deep, centering breath, filling her small lungs with the tense, heavy air of the hotel lobby. Mr. Kang looked at his watch again, his voice cold and sharp. 30 seconds. The Ye-Eun reached out. Her hands hovered over the pristine ivory and ebony keys. They were shaking, not because she was unprepared, but because she could feel the immense weight of the room pressing down on her. She could feel the waves of anger rolling off the man behind her. She could feel the suffocating pity coming from the crowd. For a terrifying second, the doubt crept in. She remembered her old music teacher, the one who had refused to teach her. "You can't learn music by ear," he had said with finality. "Music is visual. It's structure. You can't see the notes, so you can't play them." Was he right? Was Mr. Kang right? Maybe she was just a kid making noise. Maybe she should just scramble down, run to her mom, and hide from all these staring eyes and silent judgments. Have you ever wondered what it's like to see the world not with your eyes, but with your heart? Today, I want to share a story that will redefine what you think is possible. It's the story of a little girl named Alara and how she found light in a world of complete darkness. Alara was born blind. For her, the world wasn't colors and shapes, but a symphony of sounds, textures, and feelings. While other kids were learning to read picture books, Alara was learning to read the world through her fingertips. The rough bark of a tree, the cool smoothness of a window pane, the gentle purr of a cat, these were her pictures. Her parents, filled with love but also a quiet fear for her future, tried to give her every opportunity. They filled their home with music, hoping it would bring her joy. And it did. Music became Alara's first language, her truest friend. She could hear a melody once and hum it back perfectly. She could feel the rhythm in the patter of rain and the beat of her own heart. One day, her grandmother brought over an old, dusty, upright piano. To everyone else, it was just a piece of furniture. To Alara, it was a universe waiting to be explored. She ran her small hands over the keys, feeling the cool ivory and ebony. She pressed one. A single clear note filled the room. Then another and another. It was magic. From that day on, the piano was her sanctuary. She didn't need sheet music. The melodies lived inside her. Her fingers learned to dance across the keys, finding the notes as if guided by an invisible force. She played what she felt, the joy of a sunny day she could feel on her skin, the sadness of a lonely afternoon, the excitement of hearing her father's car pull into the driveway. Her parents quickly realized this was more than just a hobby. They found a piano teacher, a kind, patient woman named Mrs. Anya, who was initially hesitant. How do you teach a child who can't see the notes? But Anya soon discovered that Alara didn't need to see them. She could hear them. She could feel them. Their lessons were unconventional. Instead of pointing to a score, Anya would play a phrase, and Alara would play it back, adding her own little flourish, her own emotion. Anya taught her the language of music, the theory, the structure, but Elara was the one who gave it a soul. She learned Braille music, her fingers flying across the raised dots, translating them into sound. It was a slow, painstaking process, but her determination was unbreakable. Of course, it wasn't easy. There were days of frustration, days when the notes wouldn't come, when her fingers felt clumsy and her mind felt foggy. She'd hear other kids outside, their laughter echoing through the window, and a wave of loneliness would wash over her. She couldn't play the games they played. She couldn't see the movies they talked about. There were moments she wanted to give up, to let the silence win. In those dark moments, her family was her rock. Her mother would sit with her, not saying a word, just holding her hand. Her father would tell her stories of great people who overcame incredible odds. And Mrs. Anya would remind her, "Elara, your music is a gift. It allows people to see the world through your heart. Don't ever hide that light." And she didn't. She poured all her struggles, all her hopes, and all her dreams into her music. The piano became an extension of her own voice. Through it, she could paint sunrises she had never seen and oceans she had never touched. Her music was raw, emotional, and breathtakingly beautiful. Word of the blind girl, who played with such passion, began to spread through their small town. She was invited to play at a local community event. Elara was terrified. Playing in her living room was one thing. Playing on a stage in front of strangers was another. What if she made a mistake? What if they didn't like her music? What if they just saw her as the blind girl? A curiosity. The night of the performance, her heart was pounding like a drum. Her father led her onto the stage, her hand trembling in his. She sat at the grand piano, the stage lights warm on her face. A hush fell over the audience. For a moment, she could feel hundreds of eyes on her, and the fear threatened to swallow her whole. Then, she took a deep breath. She remembered Mrs. Anya's words. She thought of her family's unwavering belief in her. She placed her hands on the keys, the familiar coolness grounding her, and she began to play. She didn't play for the audience. She didn't play to prove anything. She played for herself. She played the story of her life, the darkness, the sounds, the frustration, the love, the hope. The melody flowed from her fingertips, a powerful current of emotion that filled every corner of the hall. The audience was captivated. They weren't just listening to music. They were feeling it. They felt the loneliness of her silent world and the explosive joy of her discovery. They saw the vibrant color she painted with sound. In those few minutes, Elara made them see the world as she did a place of profound beauty, felt not with the eyes, but with the soul. When the last note faded, there was a moment of stunned silence. It was so quiet, Elara thought she had failed. Then the applause started. It wasn't polite clapping. It was a roar. It was a standing ovation. People were crying. They weren't just applauding her skill. They were applauding her spirit. That night was a turning point. It was the moment Elara realized her blindness wasn't a barrier. It was her strength. It gave her a unique perspective, a depth of feeling that she could share with the world through her music. From that small town hall, her journey took flight. She was invited to play in bigger cities, at prestigious music festivals. She won scholarships to study at a renowned conservatory, where she honed her craft among the best young musicians in the world. Some were technically more perfect, but no one played with more heart than Elara. Her concerts became legendary. People would come not just to hear a piano recital, but to go on an emotional journey. She never spoke to the audience with words, only with her music. But her music said everything. It spoke of resilience, of finding light in the darkest of places, and of the incredible power of the human spirit. Elara's story isn't just about becoming a great pianist. It's about overcoming the limitations we think we have. It's a reminder that our greatest challenges can often lead to our greatest strengths. She couldn't see the world, so she taught the world how to feel. So next time you face a challenge, next time you feel like you're in the dark, think of Elara. Think of how she found the music in the silence. Your unique struggles are part of your unique story. They are the source of your strength, your creativity, and your light. What you perceive as your weakness might just be your superpower in disguise. Don't be afraid to embrace it, to share it, and to let it shine. Just like Elara, you have a unique song to play, a story only you can tell. Let the world hear it. Thank you so much for watching and for letting me share this incredible story with you. If it moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories that inspire and uplift. Until next time, keep finding the music in your life. Have you ever witnessed a moment so powerful it completely changed your perception of what's possible? Today, we're diving into a story that does just that. It's about a young girl, a piano, and a challenge that seemed insurmountable. Meet Ye-Eun, a blind girl with a passion for music that burns brighter than any spotlight. She's standing on a massive stage, in front of a panel of judges, including a notoriously skeptical CEO. The air is thick with doubt. The CEO, with a stern expression, can't fathom how a girl who can't see the keys could possibly master an instrument as complex as the piano. He sees her disability, not her ability. But the Ye-Eun is about to prove him, and everyone else, wrong. As she's guided to the grand piano, you can feel the tension in the room. The audience is silent, a mix of curiosity and pity in their eyes. The CEO leans back, crossing his arms, his skepticism written all over his face. He's ready to dismiss her, to move on to the next act. He probably thinks this is a waste of time. But then something magical happens. The Yeon's hands find their way to the keys. For a moment, she just sits there, composing herself. She takes a deep breath, and the world seems to hold its breath with her. Then she begins to play. The first few notes are soft, delicate, like raindrops falling on a quiet pond. They're beautiful, but the CEO remains unimpressed. He's heard pretty melodies before. He's waiting for the inevitable mistake, the proof that his initial judgment was correct. But the Ye-Eun isn't just playing notes. She's telling a story. The music begins to build. The soft melody transforms into a powerful, passionate current of sound that fills every corner of the vast auditorium. Her fingers, which once seemed so small and fragile, are now dancing across the keyboard with a speed and precision that are simply breathtaking. She's not just playing the piano. She's commanding it. The music swells with emotion. You can hear her struggle, her determination, her joy, all woven into the complex harmonies and soaring melodies. Her body sways with the rhythm, her head tilted as if she's listening to a secret conversation between herself and the instrument. She is completely lost in her own world, a world made of sound and feeling. The CEO, who was so sure of himself just moments ago, now leans forward. His arms are uncrossed. His expression of skepticism has melted away, replaced by one of pure astonishment. He can't believe what he's hearing. He looks at her, then at her hands on the keys, as if trying to solve an impossible puzzle. How is she doing this? The music is not just technically perfect. It's alive. It's filled with a raw, untamed passion that you can't teach. It comes from the soul. And then it happens. A moment of imperfection. Her finger slips, and a single discordant note cuts through the beautiful melody. A collective gasp ripples through the audience. The CEO's face tightens. This is it. This is the mistake he was waiting for. For a split second, it seems like the magic is broken. You can see a flash of frustration on the Ye-Eun's face. Her dream is hanging by a thread. But what the Ye-Eun does next is what truly defines her. She doesn't stop. She doesn't falter. Instead, she takes that wrong note, that moment of error, and she weaves it back into the music. She improvises, transforming the mistake into an unexpected, brilliant new phrase. It's a moment of pure genius. She didn't just recover from her mistake. She made it part of her masterpiece. She owned it. This is the moment the CEO finally understands. He's not just watching a talented pianist. He's witnessing a true artist, a fighter who turns obstacles into opportunities. Her blindness isn't a weakness. It's a source of her unique strength. It has forced her to connect with the music on a deeper, more intuitive level than anyone with sight ever could. She doesn't need to see the keys. She feels them. She feels the music in her very bones. The piece reaches its thunderous climax. The final chords echo through the hall, powerful and triumphant. For a moment after she finishes, there is complete silence. The entire audience, the judges, the CEO, they're all stunned, processing the incredible performance they just witnessed. The Ye-Eun sits at the piano, her chest rising and falling, the emotion of the music still washing over her. Then, the eruption. The entire auditorium rises to its feet. The applause is deafening, a wave of appreciation and awe. People are crying, they're cheering, they're yelling her name. They're not just clapping for the music. They're clapping for her spirit, her resilience, her courage. And the CEO? He's on his feet too, clapping louder than anyone. A slow smile spreads across his face, a smile of genuine admiration and respect. He was wrong. He was so wrong. He looks at the Ye-Eun, not with skepticism, but with reverence. In that moment, she taught him a lesson he will never forget. True talent knows no barriers, and the human spirit can overcome any challenge. The Ye-Eun's story is a powerful reminder for all of us. How often do we judge people based on our own limited perceptions? How often do we let our own doubts, or the doubts of others, hold us back from pursuing our passions? The Ye-Eun didn't let her circumstances define her. She didn't listen to the skeptics. She listened to the music inside her heart, and she let it sing. Her performance wasn't just about playing the piano. It was a declaration. They can be the very things that make us extraordinary. She proved that with enough passion, determination, and courage, you can make the world stop and listen. So next time you face a challenge, next time someone tells you that you can't do something, think of the Ye-Eun. Think of her sitting at that grand piano, turning a mistake into magic, and turning a room full of doubters into a crowd of believers. Let her story inspire you to find your own music and play it loud for the whole world to hear. Thank you for watching this incredible story with us. If you were as moved as we were, please hit that like button and subscribe for more inspiring content. We'll see you in the next video. She wasn't just playing the piano anymore. She was speaking to everyone in that room. She was telling them that just because something is hard doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Just because people say you can't doesn't mean it's true. As she hit the final sequence of notes, leading toward the climax of the song, the tension in the lobby completely dissolved. The struggle was over. The breakthrough had arrived. The CEO was no longer a judge. He was a fan. The mother was no longer embarrassed. She was proud. And the little girl on the big bench was no longer a blind child with a disability. She was a musician with a gift. The music soared, rising higher and higher, carrying everyone's spirits up with it, leaving the anger and the doubt far behind, down on the marble floor where they belonged. The moment the melody truly began, the entire world inside that hotel lobby seemed to tilt on its axis. The struggle was over. The doubt, the shaking hands, the angry CEO, all of it seemed to dissolve into the air as the music took over. If you have ever heard the song "River Flows in You," you know it. It is a piece of music that doesn't just sound like notes. It sounds like water moving. It sounds like a stream rushing over smooth stones in a forest. And that is exactly how the Ye-Eun played it. She wasn't hitting keys anymore. She was pouring water out of her hands. Her left hand started a steady, rhythmic pattern. It was deep and warm, like the earth holding everything up. Asterisk, bum 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 bum. Asterisk, it was the heartbeat of the song. Then her right hand began to dance. The notes trickled down, high and clear, like rain falling on a roof. It was a sound that made you feel safe. It made you feel like you were home. For the first minute, the room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. But it wasn't the heavy, awkward silence from before. It was a sacred silence. It was the kind of quiet that happens when people are witnessing something they know they will never forget. Mr. Kang was standing just a few feet away. He had come there to prove a point, to show that rules matter and that order is important. But as the music washed over him, his frown began to crack. His arms, which had been crossed tightly across his chest in a sign of defense and power, slowly uncrossed. They fell to his sides. He looked at his watch, but he didn't see the time. He just saw the shiny gold face staring back at him, ticking away seconds that suddenly didn't seem important anymore. The business deal he was worried about, the money, the stress, it all felt very small in the presence of this huge, beautiful sound. The Ye-Eun's face had changed too. When she sat down, she looked scared and small. But now, her head was tilted slightly back. Her eyes were closed, and a soft smile played on her lips. She wasn't in a lobby anymore. She was in her own world, a world made entirely of sound and color. Because she couldn't see, her other senses were superpowered. She could feel the vibrations of the piano strings traveling up through the bench, into her legs and up her spine. She was literally feeling the music. As she played, the song got more complicated. The notes started to climb higher, moving faster. Her fingers were a blur. It looked impossible for such small hands to move that quickly. She had to stretch her fingers to their limit to reach the keys. There was a moment where her hand jumped from the low end of the piano to the high end, a long distance for a child. She didn't miss a single note. Asterisk pling. Asterisk, the sound was crystal clear. It rang out like a bell, echoing off the marble floors and the tall glass windows. The acoustics of the hotel lobby, which usually made noises harsh and echoey, suddenly made the piano sound like it was in a concert hall. The people watching were mesmerized. A businessman in a gray suit, who had been typing furiously on his laptop just 5 minutes ago, had completely stopped. He was staring at the little girl, his mouth open slightly. He slowly closed his laptop, realizing that whatever email he was writing could wait. A group of tourists from Japan, who had been talking loudly and taking pictures of the chandelier, put their cameras down. They stood still, listening. Music is a universal language. It doesn't matter if you speak Korean, Japanese, or English. When you hear a melody that's pure, you understand it. You feel it in your chest. But the most amazing transformation was happening to Mr. Kang. The CEO took a step closer to the piano. He wasn't looming over her anymore. He was leaning in, like a student trying to learn a secret. He watched her fingers. He saw how she touched the keys with such care, pressing them deep to make the sound sing. He thought about his own life. He thought about how he spent his days looking at spreadsheets, counting profits, and yelling at people. He realized that in all his years of chasing success, he had forgotten what it felt like to be moved by something beautiful. He had built a wall around his heart to protect himself from the stress of the business world, and this little girl was effortlessly breaking that wall down with just a few chords. The music swelled. It was the climax of the song. The melody became louder, stronger, more intense. It was full of emotion. It sounded like triumph. It sounded like someone overcoming a great mountain. Ye-Eun's body swayed with the music. She wasn't sitting still. She was moving with the rhythm, her whole body involved in the creation of this art. She played a section of the song that was incredibly fast, a cascade of notes tumbling down like a waterfall. It was the kind of technical difficulty that professional pianists practice for years. Her left hand was jumping, her right hand was running, and yet she looked peaceful. Mr. Kang felt a strange tickle in his nose. His eyes began to sting. He tried to blink it away, thinking it was just the dust or the lights. But it wasn't the dust. It was the music. It was the realization that he had been completely, utterly wrong. He had judged this child by her cover, and he had missed the masterpiece inside. A single tear rolled down his cheek. It caught the light of the chandelier as it fell. He quickly reached up to wipe it, embarrassed, but then he stopped. He looked around and saw that he wasn't the only one. The receptionist at the front desk was crying quietly, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. The security guard, the big man who was ready to throw the Ye-Eun out, was standing with his hands behind his back, looking at the floor with a glossy look in his eyes. Even the Ye-Eun's mother, who knew her daughter was talented, had never heard her play like this. She had her hands over her mouth, silent tears streaming down her face, shaking her head in disbelief. The song began to slow down. The rushing water calmed. The notes became softer, gentler. The Ye-Eun was bringing it to a close. She played the final melody one last time, slow and sweet. It felt like a goodbye or a promise to meet again. She reached the last two notes, a deep, low chord in the left hand and a single high note in the right hand. She pressed them gently, holding them down. The sound hung in the air. It vibrated through the floor, through the benches, through the bones of everyone listening. It was the most perfect sound you could imagine. And then the Ye-Eun lifted her hands off the keys. Silence rushed back into the room, but it was a different kind of silence now. Before, the silence was tense and waiting. Now the silence was full. It was heavy with emotion. It felt like the air was charged with electricity. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. It was as if everyone was afraid that if they made a sound, the magic would disappear. Ye-Eun sat on the bench, her hands resting in her lap. She took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling. She opened her eyes, but she didn't see the crowd. She just sat there, smiling softly, waiting for the echo of the last note to fade away completely. That silence lasted for 3 seconds, maybe 4, but it felt like forever. Then a sound broke the spell. It was the sound of clapping. It started with one person. Asterisk clap, clap. Asterisk, it wasn't fast clapping. It was slow, deliberate clapping. It was respect. Everyone turned to look. It was Mr. Kang, the CEO, the man who had been angry, the man who had tried to stop the music, was standing there clapping. He wasn't looking at his watch. He wasn't looking at his phone. He was looking right at the Ye-Eun. And he was crying openly now, a smile on his face through the tears. "Bravo," he whispered. Then he said it louder. "Bravo." That was the signal the room needed. The dam broke. The lobby erupted. It wasn't just polite applause. It was a roar. People started cheering. "Hoo-oo," shouted a man in the back. A woman yelled, "Encore." The sound was deafening after the quiet of the piano. It filled the huge space, bouncing off the walls. It was the sound of 50 strangers coming together to celebrate something pure. The Yoon's face lit up. She turned her head toward the sound of the cheering. She couldn't see the smiles, but she could hear the love. She could feel the energy in the room, which was now warm and excited instead of cold and judgmental. She grinned from ear to ear, showing a missing tooth, looking exactly like the happy 5-year-old she was. Her mother rushed forward and wrapped her arms around the Ye-Eun, squeezing her tight. She was laughing and crying at the same time. "You did it! You did it, my baby!" She sobbed into her daughter's hair. The Ye-Eun hugged her back. "Did he like it, Mommy? Did the angry man like it?" Before her mother could answer, Mr. Kang stepped up to the piano. The crowd parted for him like the Red Sea. He walked up to the bench, his steps slow and heavy with emotion. He knelt down on one knee on the marble floor. He didn't care that his expensive suit pants might get dusty. He wanted to be on her level. He wanted to look her in the eye. The Ye-Eun turned her face toward him. Mr. Kang reached out and gently took one of her small hands in his large, rough hand. "The Ye-Eun," he said. His voice was thick, choking up slightly. That was the most beautiful thing I have ever heard." The Ye-Eun beamed. "Really?" "Really," Mr. Kang said. "I was wrong. I was so wrong. I thought you were just a child making noise. But you are an artist. You are a musician." He looked at her mother. "And you," he said. "I apologize. I was rude. I was arrogant. Please forgive me." The mother nodded, wiping her eyes. "Thank you, sir. Thank you for listening." Mr. Kang stood up. He addressed the whole room, but he spoke to the Ye-Eun. "The world needs to hear this," he announced. "This cannot stay in a hotel lobby." The solution to the problem hadn't been a security guard removing them. The solution hadn't been the CEO winning the argument. The solution was the music itself. The music was the bridge that connected two completely different worlds, the world of a struggling blind child and the world of a powerful CEO. The music had solved the problem of prejudice by replacing it with understanding. It had solved the problem of anger by replacing it with joy. In those 4 minutes of playing, the Ye-Eun had changed the atmosphere of the entire hotel. She had turned a moment of conflict into a moment of connection that nobody there would ever forget. Mr. Kang reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his business card holder. He took out a crisp, white card and a pen. He turned it over and wrote something on the back. He handed it to the Ye-Eun's mother. "I own a music company," he explained, though everyone already knew who he was. "I want to help her. No more excuses. No more teachers saying she can't do it. We will find the best teachers. We will get her instruments. We will make sure the world hears her play." The mother looked at the card. It had his personal number on it. She looked up at him, overwhelmed. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why would you do this for us?" Mr. Kang looked at the Ye-Eun, who was back to running her fingers over the piano keys, exploring the sounds again, now that the pressure was off. The world can be a noisy place, and sometimes True talent gets lost in the crowd. But every so often, a melody cuts through the chaos, a sound so pure and honest, it stops you in your tracks. This is the story of the Ye-Eun, a young girl whose music was destined to be heard, even when she couldn't see the world around her. Our story begins in the aftermath of a performance that would change her life forever. The Ye-Eun, a blind street musician, had just poured her heart out on a hotel lobby piano. The notes, full of longing and raw emotion, still hung in the air. But as the last chord faded, so did her composure. Tears streamed down her face, a mix of relief, fear, and the overwhelming weight of her dream. In that vulnerable moment, a kind voice broke the silence. It was Mr. Kang, a man who saw not her disability, but her extraordinary gift. He offered her a handkerchief, and with it, a promise of a new beginning. He saw the fire in her, the music that was yearning to break free. The next day, the Ye-Eun's world transformed. A sleek, black limousine, a chariot of dreams, pulled up to take her away from the gritty streets she called home. For the first time, she wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was an artist on her way to her destiny. The car door opened to reveal a life she had only ever imagined. The destination? A private, soundproof music studio, a sanctuary built just for her. And in the center of it all, gleaming under the soft lights, was a magnificent grand piano, her very own. As her fingers tentatively touched the smooth, cool ivory keys, a wave of disbelief and pure joy washed over her. This wasn't just an instrument. It was a validation. It was proof that her music mattered, that her dream was real. She played, and the music that filled the room was no longer tinged with the sadness of the streets. It was a symphony of hope, a celebration of a future she could now not only hear but feel. The days that followed were a whirlwind of happiness. Mr. Kang became her mentor and biggest supporter, guiding her through this new, dazzling world. She had a home, she had her music, and for the first time, she had a real chance. But the biggest test was yet to come. To truly become a professional pianist, she needed the guidance of the best. That meant an audition with the legendary and notoriously strict Madame Sue, a woman whose approval could make or break a career. The air in the audition hall was thick with tension. Other hopefuls, technically perfect and impeccably trained, went before her. Then it was the Ye-Eun's turn. Dressed simply, she walked to the piano, her heart pounding in her chest. She took a deep breath and began to play. What happened next was pure magic. The music that flowed from her fingertips was unlike anything Madame Sue had ever heard. It wasn't just technically proficient. It was alive. It told a story of hardship, of hope, of a young girl who found light in a world of darkness. Every note was infused with an emotion so raw and powerful that it silenced the entire room. Madame Sue, a woman who had seen it all, was visibly moved. She saw past the lack of formal training and recognized something far more valuable. A natural-born genius, a soul that spoke through music. The Ye-Eun hadn't just played the piano. She had bared her soul. The audition was a resounding success. Madame Sue took the Ye-Eun under her wing, but this was just the beginning of a new, arduous journey. To read music, the Ye-Eun had to learn an entirely new language, Braille music scores. Her fingertips, already sensitive from years of playing, now had to decipher intricate patterns of raised dots. The process was slow and frustrating. There were moments of doubt, times when the mountain of notes seemed too high to climb. She would spend hours upon hours in her studio, tracing the Braille sheets, her brow furrowed in concentration. She would play a passage, then stop, her fingers returning to the dots, memorizing the shape and feel of the music. But her determination never wavered. Her love for the piano was a fire that could not be extinguished. Every small victory, every correctly identified chord, every smoothly played phrase fueled her desire to succeed. She wasn't just learning notes on a page. She was absorbing the music into her very being. The Braille scores became an extension of her own memory, a tactile map of the soundscapes she would create. Mr. Kang and Madame Sue watched with pride as she blossomed, her technique becoming more refined, her musicality deepening with every passing day. The Ye-Eun's story is a powerful reminder that our greatest challenges can often lead to our greatest strengths. Her blindness, which could have been a barrier, became the very thing that sharpened her hearing and deepened her connection to the music. She didn't need to see the keys. She could feel them. She didn't need to see the audience. She could feel their energy. She learned to see the world not with her eyes, but with her heart and her ears, translating its beauty into melodies that could move anyone who listened. From a lonely girl playing on the streets to a prodigy training with the best, the Ye-Eun's journey is a testament to the power of passion and perseverance. It teaches us that talent can be found in the most unexpected places, and that with a little help and a lot of heart, no dream is too big. Her music became her voice, a universal language that transcended sight and spoke directly to the soul. Thank you so much for watching. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that celebrates the human spirit. We'll see you in the next video. In the heart of the city, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds, lived a man named Arthur Vance. He wasn't just any man. He was the CEO of Vance Innovations, a titan of industry whose name was synonymous with ruthless efficiency. For Arthur, everything had a price tag, a quantifiable value. People were assets, judged by their productivity, their contribution to the bottom line. His world was a spreadsheet of profits and losses, and there was no room for anything that couldn't be measured. One afternoon, seeking refuge from the relentless pace of his life, Arthur ducked into a small, unassuming cafe he'd never noticed before. The air was thick with the aroma of coffee and freshly baked pastries, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of his high-rise office. As he waited for his order, a soft melody began to drift from a corner of the cafe. An old, upright piano stood there, and seated at its bench was a young woman. Her name was Alara. She couldn't have been more than 20, with a serene smile gracing her lips. Her fingers danced across the ivory keys with a grace that seemed almost ethereal. But what truly struck Arthur was that her eyes were closed. No, not just closed. A pair of dark glasses rested on her nose, and the gentle, unfocused way she held her head told him everything. She was blind. Arthur watched, his usual cynicism momentarily forgotten. The music she played wasn't a famous concerto or a complex classical piece. It was simple, yet it carried an emotional weight that filled every corner of the small cafe. It spoke of quiet joy, of gentle melancholy, of a world seen not with eyes, but with the heart. The bustling cafe seemed to hold its breath. The clatter of cups subsided, conversations paused, and everyone was drawn into the beautiful world Alara was creating. For the first time in years, Arthur felt something stir within him that wasn't related to a stock price or a business deal. It was a feeling of pure, unadulterated awe. He looked at Alara, a girl who, by his rigid metrics, would be deemed disadvantaged. In his world of cold, hard data, she would have been overlooked, her potential dismissed. Yet, here she was, commanding the attention of an entire room, creating something of profound beauty that no amount of money could ever replicate. The melody swelled, each note a perfect shimmering drop of sound. It was a language that transcended sight, a testament to a different kind of vision. Arthur thought of his own employees, the people he saw as cogs in a machine. Had he been missing their true worth? Had he been so focused on what they could produce that he failed to see who they were? He saw their faces in his mind's eye, not as job titles, but as individuals, each with their own hidden melodies, their own unique talents, waiting to be heard. When the final note faded into a lingering silence, the cafe erupted in warm, heartfelt applause. Alara simply smiled, a soft blush on her cheeks, as if she were just sharing a small piece of her soul with friends. Arthur found himself clapping along, his applause genuine and loud. He walked over to the piano, not as a CEO, but as just another person deeply moved by her art. He dropped a generous bill into her tip jar, but it felt inadequate. That was extraordinary, he said, his voice softer than he was used to. Alara turned her head towards the sound of his voice, her smile widening. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Music is how I see the world. How you see the world, Arthur repeated quietly, the words echoing in his mind. It was a revelation. He had spent his life looking at the world, but had he ever truly seen it? He had judged people by their limitations, by what they lacked, instead of by the unique strengths they possessed. Alara, without her sight, saw more beauty and created more value in those few minutes than many did in a lifetime. That day, Arthur Vance walked out of the cafe a different man. The experience was a seed planted in the barren soil of his corporate worldview. He returned to Vance Innovations not with a new strategy for profit, but with a new philosophy for people. He began to look beyond the resumes and performance reviews. He started initiatives to uncover hidden talents, to create a more inclusive environment where every employee felt seen and valued for their unique contributions, not just their quantifiable output. He sought out the quiet graphic designer who was a brilliant storyteller, the introverted coder who was a master at mentoring new hires, the receptionist who had an uncanny ability to resolve any conflict with a calm word. He started to listen to the music of his own company, the diverse melodies that, when played together, created a symphony far more powerful and resilient than he had ever imagined. His company didn't just become more successful, it became more human. Productivity soared, but more importantly, so did morale. People felt empowered, their worth affirmed. And it all started with a blind girl and a piano in a small cafe. Elara never knew the profound impact her music had on a powerful CEO, how her simple, beautiful melody had rewritten the entire operating system of a man's soul, and in turn, an entire corporation. Arthur learned the most valuable lesson of his life that day. True worth isn't measured in dollars or data points. It's found in the passion, the creativity, and the unique light that each person brings into the world. It's about learning to close your eyes to prejudice and assumptions, and opening your heart to the beautiful, unseen melodies all around us. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that explores the deeper connections in our world. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time. Maybe you are like the Ye-Eun. Maybe you feel small. Maybe you feel like the world is telling you no. Maybe you feel like you don't belong in the room you are standing in. If that is you, remember this story. Remember that you don't need to see the stairs to take the first step. You just need to have the courage to sit down and play. Or maybe you are like Mr. Kang. Maybe you are successful, but you are stressed. Maybe you are so focused on winning that you are forgetting to enjoy the music. If that is you, take a breath. Stop looking at your watch. Look around you. There is beauty happening right now, right in front of you, if you are willing to slow down enough to hear it. The Ye-Eun's music didn't just change her life. It changed the atmosphere of a room. It changed the heart of a CEO. It changed the mind of a teacher. And through this story, it can change us too. As the final notes of her concert faded into silence that night, the audience stood up. They didn't just clap. They gave her a standing ovation that lasted for 10 minutes. It was a roar of love and acceptance. And the Ye-Eun sat there on her bench, smiling that same innocent smile, her feet dangling, her heart full. She couldn't see the hundreds of people standing for her, but she could feel them. She could feel the love vibrating through the floorboards. And that was better than sight any day. So, go out there and find your song. And be kind to the people who are trying to find theirs. You never know when a simple act of listening might change a life forever. Thank you for being part of this story. Keep your heart open and keep listening.